school radio show. Ask her to be part of the school radio. I was like, really? Go do that. Roger wanted her to be part of his radio broadcast team. High demand for girls on the AV systems. All right. I'm going to pick up where Chuck left off. I had grand plans, and probably that's why we pass things along, I guess. Between grand plans and, this stuff is, there's a lot of stuff in there. So, anyways, we'll see where we get. We get where we get, and we don't, we'll move on. So we've been looking at where we'll be. So we've been looking at, I know you got holidays left for next week, because I didn't get to all the holidays. I got to 3. Yeah, I know. Well, you know how I am. If I can talk about 2 verses, I will. So, that's right. So we've been talking about the New Testament environment, what's going on as you see Jesus and the apostles and the disciples, what's been going on around them, so you can shape what the thoughts and plans are of everybody. And last week we looked at the worship in Judaism, and along with the worship, the temple. The temple is the key to the whole deal, and I've cut Chuck's slides down just to kind of go over it, but the temple was, the foundation was laid in 1012 BC, dedicated in 1004 BC, pillaged, repaired, profaned, restored, pillaged, destroyed, rebuilt. Antiochus Epiphanes does the unspeakable in the temple of God, and it was cleansed by Judas Maccabeus. And that takes over 800 plus years to go there. But you can. Yes, you're right. The last one does tie into the holidays. I didn't get to that holiday, but it does tie into the holidays. Paul? Oh, okay. Thought you had something. So we talked about the temple and how that was the key. It had been the Old Testament center of worship, and obviously that continued into the New Testament with the Jews. So the temple is basically, there's the original temple, basically destroyed by Nebuchadnezzar. It's rebuilt, as recorded in Ezra, and not always treated the best by the locals after that. And Chuck had his drawing of what was inside the temple, and there's a million different drawings of this, and they're all about the same thing. The Holy of Holies is really where the high priest went once a year to make a blood offering to God. Only him. He went through the veil to get there. The Ark of the Covenant was typically laid in there, as Chuck looked at last week. Ark of the Covenant disappears somewhere. Somewhere along the line, it disappears. You want a rabbit hole? Chase that on the internet. Follow that to Ethiopia in a tent somewhere. There's all kinds of theories. Who knows? My theory basically is God didn't need it anymore. That's where we're going to go with a lot of this, is God didn't need that anymore. Said the veil separated the Holy of Holies from the holy place. That veil, tell me what you think the veil is. Tell me what you think it looked like. Tell me when you just hear the veil. A covering. Wow. You've been around, haven't you? That's a good answer. That's a good answer. He's a covering. They just go down to the thrift shop every other week and get a new one. It's a shower curtain, right?
I even look back in Genesis. Exodus. But I got the feeling it was really heavy cloth that was purple. I think it's purple, but I think it's really heavy cloth.
And I'm going to look it up and didn't get there, but you're right. My recollection is it's like 3 inches thick, really heavy, made out of cord. And I think it's like, I'm thinking purple, but I think blue and red mixed in there, which of course makes purple anyways. But yeah, it's nothing little. It's you don't have carpet that thick. This orange carpet's not that thick, and it's holy. No, it's not a shower curtain. It's not a bridal veil. That name is kind of mistaken. Anyways, you got the,
Which ties into that verse where Christ dies and the veil's ripped.
yeah, no small feet.
Yeah. A wind's gonna rip that veil? No.
No, the wind wouldn't get in there, and wind couldn't do it. And no. So this is basically the layout of the original temple, 30 feet by 90 feet. This room is 60, 75 that way. I was thinking it was 60 by 80. I was thinking it was 60 by 8. I think it was 4,800 square feet when we had the carpet cleaned, but I won't swear to that. I should know that, but well, whatever. Close enough. This. Okay. All right. 75 feet's the throw of the projector. That the temple would have fit essentially half this auditorium. Close enough. You want to give a guesstimate. Half the auditorium, whichever half you want to sit on, sheep or goats, you know. It's your half. That's the size of the temple. Not a very big place, really. So, yeah. Then Herod, you had that picture. As it's cleansed by Judas Maccabeus, Crassus robs it. Herod Great burns a portion of the temple. Herod Agrippa begins rebuilding it in 20 AD. Finally, it's rebuilt and completed by Agrippa II about 63 AD. Titus utterly destroys it in 70 AD. And so when's the life of Jesus? Give me a guess on there. Yeah, somewhere, the Agrippa I. Jesus was probably born 4 BC, plus or minus, and his crucifixion would be 29 AD, plus or minus. So you see the rebuilding of the temple is completed long after Jesus is crucified. And then it's destroyed. Jerusalem itself is destroyed in 70 AD. And that's really the end of the temple. So. They tried to erase it, and it's the functionality as a way to get to God is done with the establishment of the church. Judaism, it doesn't work anymore. So, but yeah, the utter destruction of the Jews, not given, that's people, not God destroying that, I don't think. This is the temple as it became, and Chuck's got this marked out here and the green circle is the original size of Solomon's temple, but it gets a lot bigger as the temple grew, as they rebuilt it. So, a lot bigger thing. And there's a picture that's in 3D of the original size is kind of marked there. So, why would it get so big? If the original size worked, why would it get so big over time? More room to make money. Yeah, we've seen the money changers out in the courtyard. Just a couple stories about those. Court of the Gentiles. I mean, even people who don't know God are welcome to come and make their offerings to God, which is they know God if they're coming to offer it to Him. They're just not committed yet, I guess. The Sanhedrin met in part of it. There's a court of women. There's a whole lot of different stuff that goes on. So. I got 2 verses, and I really didn't put a whole lot with these 2 verses, but we're going to look at Matthew 27. And we were talking about the veil a little while ago. Like I said, I was going to go back and do some more with this, but we got enough today. Matthew 27, 45 through 53. Now from the 6th hour, there was darkness all over the land until the 9th hour. So we're talking about when Jesus is hanging on the cross. And about the 9th hour, Jesus cried out with a loud voice, saying, Eli, Eli, lema sabachthani. That is, my God, why have you forsaken me? And some of the bystanders, hearing it, said, this man is calling Elijah. One of them at once ran and took a sponge, filled it with sour wine, put it on a reed, gave it to him to drink. But the others said, wait, let's see whether Elijah will come and save him. And Jesus cried out again with a loud voice and yielded up his spirit. And behold, the curtain of the temple was torn in two, from top to bottom. The earth shook, and the rocks were split. The tombs were also opened, and many bodies of the saints who had fallen asleep were raised. And coming out of the tombs after his resurrection, they went into the holy city and appeared to many. So we got this part right here about as Jesus died, the veil was split that we looked at with the temple. What's special about how it split? Verse 51. It's torn in two parts, right? From the top to the bottom. Would you expect it to go from top to bottom or from bottom to top? Which would be easier if you're going to try to tear a big curtain? Where it's not supported. The bottom would be the unsupported part, not from the top. But like I said, it's a lot thicker than you would expect to. So what do you think this signifies? Is this curtain, this veil, that separates the Holy of Holies from everything else, separates God, who would be with his place on the Ark of the Covenant, it separated him from the people, basically. What do you think that symbolizes? Adam? Okay.
The stones, it said the stones were also, the rocks were also, it says, and the rocks were split.
Yeah.
So like, is that like considering the foundation itself of the temple?
I'm going to say that, I'm not going to say that was actually the temple that happened at, because this would be 29 AD. They didn't finish constructing it until 63 AD. I think that's just general signs around. Inside the temple, the veil splits top to bottom. There was an earthquake, rocks broke in half. You know, I think if a rock broke in half by its, not everything, but just a random rock, something like that, I think it'd even be more miraculous or whatever. I don't think those were rocks like the foundation of the temple, but I don't know. But that would be a good point. But since they finished building it, I wouldn't think it was them. But it could be the ones around it as they're still building. That would work. So what do you think about the curtain? What do you think that symbolizes? Kind of opens us up to being directly to God, right? We don't have to go through a priest. We don't have to go through all that process, and that's really what that opens up. So just thought while we were talking about that, I'd include that verse. There's a lot of crazy stuff that happens in verse 51 and 52 and 53 right here as Jesus gives up his spirit, all this confirming the Son of God, really. So also in Matthew 24, something to go into the temple, verse 1 and 2 and 16 through 22. Jesus left the temple area and was going on his way when his disciples came up to point out the temple buildings to him. But he responded and said to them, Do you not see all these things? Truly I say to you, not one stone here will be left upon another, which will not be torn down. Therefore, when you see the abomination of desolation, which was spoken of through Daniel the prophet, standing in the holy place, let the reader understand. Then those who are in Judea must flee to the mountains. Whoever is on the housetop must go down to get things out of his house. And whoever is in the field must not turn back to get his cloak. But woe to those women who are pregnant, to those who are nursing babies in those days. Moreover, pray that when you flee, it will not be winter, or on the Sabbath. For then there will be a great tribulation, such as not occurred since the beginning of the world until now, nor ever will again. And if those days had not been cut short, no life would have been saved. But for the sake of the elect, those days will be cut short. A lot of prophecies have long and short. You can see the end of times and a lot of stuff, but in the short of it, it talks about the abomination of desolation. The abomination of desolation is a nickname given to that guy in red, Titus, right?
Titus and Vespasian, the father and son, were the ones, but they got into the temple and they looted the temple.
They looted the temple.
Destroyed it.
Yeah.
Just destroyed
They ran their own businesses, illicit businesses in there too, and utterly destroyed it, and destroyed all of Jerusalem entirely.
And the culture, that was they took everybody and sold them off individually into slavery too. They were very thorough at putting down the Jews.
They were very thorough in putting in the Jews. Judaism, by and large, formal Judaism ends with this. The religious practices end with the destruction of the temple. Even with the destruction, it cleanses the birth records and that kind of thing. There's no rationale with God for the need of Judaism. His Son has come. His Son has is given his life as a sacrifice. He's been resurrected. The church has been established. I am the truth, the way, and the light. That's all that's needed. He doesn't need the other there. So it's destroyed, but Judaism is functionally dead at this point. There's no Sanhedrin, there's no all that stuff. But Judaism functionally is gone at this time. The last stand was what? Posada was the last stand of the Jews? Okay.
They ended up slitting everyone's throat rather than being taken by the Romans.
Yeah. They slit everybody's throat rather than be taken by the Romans. I can understand that. As you watch the news, and we've had a fight over that land for 2,000 years. Israel's on land that's the same. Israel today is on land that Israel was on at that time. But there's a 1900-year time that there was no Israel there. It was just Palestine. That was established by international decree after Second World War to put the Jews there for a safe haven after the Nazis and stuff. You hear people's discussion on that if God ordained that his people would have that land. As we know from the church, his people are everywhere. And Israel is by international decree, that's their land. And that's what we defend and everything else. That's their land by international decree. I will not say that that's their land by God's decree. The lease is up, basically. The Judaism ends, that area is destroyed. There's no lease on that land anymore. According to what their covenant with God, that's gone. But by international decree, it's their land. So, there's a whole lot to that. I don't like to get political, but that's the way I see it anyways. Holidays. Get into something happy. Even their holidays were not happy times there. They really weren't good times. Hey, let's have a really good time. It's not this stuff. All right, Chuck's got a calendar here with 7 Jewish holidays. Feast of Purim. Is it Purim or Purim? You've always heard Purim. You were around a lot more Jews than I was, so I'll trust you on that. Passover, Pentecost, or the Feast of Weeks, the Feast of Trumpets, or Rosh Hashanah, Day of Atonement, Feast of Tabernacles, Feast of Lights, Hanukkah. I only do the first 3. Well, that's all I got notes on is Feast of Purim, Passover, and Pentecost. So I guess Chuck will pick up with the other ones. I know he's a big fan of Rosh Hashanah, the Day of Atonement. So we'll let him pick up that. These things are very complex and they change over time. So the Feast of Purim, it happens on the evening of the 14th of the Hebrew month of Adar. And the dates change as the Jewish calendar is established. Am I right with this? The Jewish calendar is established from the first new moon after the spring solstice. Is that right? It's based on the moon. How about that? We'll go with that. It's based on the moon. Yeah, there's a 28-day period where the dates can fluctuate. You'll see with all the 3 festivals I'm looking at today. And that's why Easter varies. Why do we have Easter on different days? Is because it ties to Passover, which Passover is tied to that first new moon after the solstice, the spring solstice or something like that. But anyways, Feast of Purim will have these kind of dates for the next 3 years. But basically, in their Hebrew month of Adar, that's when it was, on the 14th. Ancient walled cities celebrated a day later, and we're going to look at the reason for that possibly. It celebrates the victory of the Jews over their enemies, as told in the book of Esther. Anybody familiar with the book of Esther? Yeah, it's a neat. What's that? You are. It's a unique book. They say that God is not directly mentioned in the book of Esther, but you can't help but see his hand in it the whole way. So, whether his name is or isn't. Observant obligations, and believe it or not, Wikipedia had a pretty straightforward, whether true, false, otherwise. Wikipedia was pretty simple on this stuff. But the Feast of Purim, one of the things they do is there's a public reading in the synagogue, usually, of the book of Esther. They do it in the evening, and they do it again in the next morning. So a public reading of that, that's a unique thing. Some other things, you send food gifts to friends, you give charity to the poor, you eat a festive meal. There we go.
You're not going to say the words that are
You know, as an engineer, I will leave that as an exercise to the interested parties. All right, if I had candy, I'd get some people reading some Hebrew. All right, Book of Esther. The reading of the Book of Esther is Kriyat Megillah, because I know Megillah is Esther. Sending food gifts to friends, Mishlosh Mano, giving charity to the poor. I got a French accent now. Madanat La'evninon, and eating a festive meal, Seudat Mitzvah. All right, I know I did terribly, but that's what happens when you sit on the stool. Yeah, good enough for Paul. He thinks that's exactly how it's supposed to be. Some of the traditions from the Talmud, and the Talmud's a rabbinic text, so it's the Hebrew Bible, so they take the Old Testament and they add notes to it. So if you've got, for instance, a Thompson Chain Bible or Schofield or something like that, and you got the little notes in there, they've got the same kind of thing, but those notes became sacred. Whereas we know, if we got notes on the side of your Bible, they're just notes. They're by some guy who can make the same mistakes as the guy in the stool who can't read Hebrew. So some traditions from the Talmud that go along with this is 3 benedictions before the reading of Esther and 1 benediction after the reading. Just thought I'd throw those out there. What's a benediction? I love big words. It's a prayer of blessing is really what it is. So there's a prayer of blessing. They do 3 of those before and they read the book of Esther and 1 after. So the public readings are unique things. You see that in Ezra, that they read the whole Torah. They read the whole first 5 books.
Yeah, I think for the first time
In-
in 70 plus.
Yeah, and first time in like 70 years. They found a copy. Hey, look, we found this. We weren't keeping any kind of religious practices. They bring everybody together and they read it. I think it's in Ezra and maybe in Nehemiah, but it's Ezra that reads it though, isn't it? I don't know. Maybe it's the other guy that reads it. Whatever. Well, I didn't go that far, but anyways. But I know they read the entire Torah, the first 5 books. They read that with the whole presence of Israel. I've known churches to take 1 day a year and they'll read the New Testament in a 24-hour period. They'll have different guys take a microphone and they'll read for 15 minutes at a time and somebody else picks up and they'll go 24 hours. People drop in and drop out. But to hear that read, to be a part of that, you speak it, you believe it, and that's really the key is having people there to hear it and remember what went on. The names, one of the other traditions, I like this one. The name of the 10 sons of Haman were read in a single breath to indicate their simultaneous death. Here's the one you need somebody to read, Chuck. So, in Susa, the citadel itself, the Jews killed and destroyed 500 men and also killed the 10 sons of Haman. And I don't know if I could say this in one breath. Parshandatha and Dalphon and Aspatha and Paratha and Adalia and Aridatha and Parmashata and Arisai and Aridai and Vaishatha, the 10 sons of Haman, the son of Habadatha, the enemy of the Jews, but they laid no hands on the plunder. So it's not as bad as I thought. But that's one of their things to do, and they read that in one, because they all died at the same time. So another tradition that they started probably later in medieval times, which really has no bearing on the New Testament. But the congregation, as the reader reads certain verses, the congregation reads along with these. Esther 2:5, Esther 8:15 through 16, Esther 10:3 in particular. They relate the origin of Mordecai and his triumph. So I got those, Esther, and I misspelled Esther. How can you do that? Now there was a Jew in Susa, the citadel, whose name was Mordecai, the son of Jair, son of Shimei, son of Kish, a Benjamite. Then Mordecai went out from the presence of the king in royal robes of blue and white, with a great golden crown and a robe of fine linen and purple. The city of Susa shouted and rejoiced. The Jews had light and gladness and joy and honor. For Mordecai the Jew was second in rank to King Ahasuerus, and he was great among the Jews and popular with the multitude of his brothers, for he sought the welfare of his people and spoke peace to all his people. So they read along with that. Oh, Mordecai's from the same line as Saul, huh? Shimei? Okay. Yeah, I think you're right. I think you're right. They were Benjamites, so not much branching down there. That's, second generation to get to Shimei. Cousins. So in Esther, man, how did I misspell? I think you misspelled Esther. I'm not going to take the blame on this one. Maybe I can. I don't care. That's. You'd think you do it multi-times. They catch polyester. That's her sister, polyester. Esther 9:24 through 25. For Haman the Agagite, the son of Hammedatha, the enemy of all the Jews, had plotted against the Jews to destroy them, and had cast that is, cast lots, to crush and destroy them. And when it came before the king, he gave orders in writing that his evil plan that he had devised against the Jews would return on his own head, that he and his sons would be hanged on the gallows. So this is the victory that they celebrate with Purim. Who put the pure in Purim? And what is the pure in Purim? What is pure? It's the casting of lots. And the guy that did that is Haman, the guy that wanted to kill all the Jews. I think that he did that to figure out when he was going to do it. Was he cast lots? What is casting lots? You see that several times in the Bible too. It could be marks on stones, kind of like, say, something similar to dice or something. You flip a coin, you could put a target with little point values, and you throw it. It could be like that. It's whatever it is, it's some sort of randomness that it was. The Jews meant so little to him, he just randomly picked a date by casting lots. And this lot, that lot is why they give the name Purim to the holiday. Picking up in Esther 9:26 through 28. Therefore they call these days Purim after the term pure. Therefore, because of all that was written in this letter, and of what they had faced in this matter, and of what had happened to them, the Jews firmly obligated themselves and their offspring and all who had joined them. And without fail, they would keep these 2 days according to what was written, and at the time appointed every year, and that these days would be remembered and kept throughout every generation, for every clan, province, in every clan, province, and city, and that these days of Purim would never fall into disuse among the Jews, nor should the commemoration of these days cease among their descendants. So what was Purim established to remember? That they beat the victory over Haman, victory over destruction. It's that victory over that. How long were they going to keep this commemoration? How long were they going to keep this holiday? It says every generation. Don't let this fall into disuse. Has it? Anybody ever hear of Purim today?
I did.
You heard about it. That's good. That's good. Those who are with it are still, and it should. It's one of those things that should be remembered forever, that destruction. Esther 9, 29 through 32, then Queen Esther, the daughter of Abihail, and Mordecai the Jew, gave full written authority confirming his second letter from Purim. Letters were sent to all the Jews, to the 127 provinces of the kingdom of Ahasuerus, in words of peace and truth, that these days of Purim would be observed at their appointed season, as Mordecai the Jew and Queen Esther obligated him, and as they had obligated themselves and their offspring, which with regard to their fasts and their lamenting. The command of Esther confirmed these practices of Purim, and it was recorded in writing. So who ordained this as a holiday? Whose signature makes this a holiday? Esther herself. Esther and Mordecai. Yeah, I guess I'll give you that. Not God. Esther and Mordecai. It's in his inspired word, though. But the record's there. But it's established by. No, it's not a celebrate God holiday. It's a minor holiday. Okay.
You're looking at, we overcame our foes. They didn't destroy us. It seems to be a theme.
Yeah, it is a theme of them. We overcame. We weren't destroyed. Yeah. All right, we'll go on to Passover. On the evening of it's celebrated on the evening of the 15th of the Hebrew month of Nisan. There's another word for Nisan, which is Abib, A-B-I-B, or A-V-I-V, which is an older name. And that's, like I said, there's the 3 dates that you'll see with this. It celebrates the exodus of the Israelites from Egypt, is what the Passover celebrates. When do we have Easter? The day after. Yeah, the Exodus goes with that. Yeah.
Exodus comes after that. That's the last plague.
It's the last plague, and it's with what they had on there.
But it was the sacrificial lamb.
Sacrificial lamb. Yeah. I'll give you that. They celebrate with unleavened bread, lamb, bitter herbs, and spices. If you live within 15 miles of Jerusalem, you were required to make a pilgrimage there. The population reached over 3 million in Jerusalem. What's this celebration foreshadow? Really foreshadows Christ himself, the real Passover. Yeah. The perfect lamb, the Passover from death. In Exodus 12, you see the account of the last plague, the 10th plague. Now the Lord said to Moses and Aaron in the land of Egypt, "This month shall be the beginning of months for you. It is to be the first month of the year for you. Speak to all the congregation of Israel, saying, on the 10th of this month, they are each one to take a lamb for themselves, according to the father's households, a lamb for each household. Now, if the household is too small for a lamb, then he and his neighbor nearest to his house are to take one according to the number of persons in them. In proportion to what each one should eat, you are to divide the lamb. Your lamb shall be an unblemished male, a year old. You may take it from the sheep or from the goats. You shall keep it until the 14th day of the same month. Then the whole assembly of the congregation of Israel is to slaughter it at twilight. Moreover, they take some of the blood, put it to the 2 doorposts and on the lintel of the houses in which they eat." And that's in preparation for the 10th plague, the Passover, as God goes over. In Exodus 12, the Passover has happened. It's already happened at that time. And they shall eat they're through the Red Sea at that point, if I'm right. They shall eat the flesh that same night, roasted with fire, and they shall eat it with unleavened bread and bitter herbs. Do not eat any of it raw or boiled at all with water, but rather roasted with fire, with its head and its legs, along with the entrails. And you shall not leave any of it over until morning. But whatever is left of it until morning, you shall completely burn with fire. And you shall eat it in this way, with your garment belted around your waist, your sandals on your feet, your staff in your hand. You shall eat it in a hurry, It is the Lord's Passover. For I will go through the land of Egypt. Oh, this is still the first plague. On that night, and fatally strike down the firstborn in the land of Egypt, from the human firstborn and the animals. And again, against all the odds of Egypt, I will execute judgments. I am the Lord. The blood shall be a sign for you on the houses where you live. When I see the blood, I will pass over you, and no plague will come upon you to destroy you when I strike the land of Egypt. So who ordained this? And right now we're looking at that first action of it. Who ordained that? It was God's instructions. Yeah, it's God through Moses, but it's God himself. It's not Moses' plan. In Exodus 13, Moses said to his people, remember this day in which you came out of Egypt. So this is after the Passover and after they get out of the house of slavery, for by a strong hand the Lord brought you out from this place. No leavened bread shall be eaten today in the month of Abib, which is Nisan. You are going out, and the Lord brings you into the land of the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Amorites, the Hivites, the Jebusites, his promised land, which he swore to your fathers to give you, a land flowing with milk and honey. And you shall keep the service in this month. 7 days you shall eat unleavened bread, and on the seventh day there will be a feast to the Lord. Unleavened bread shall be eaten for 7 days. No leavened bread shall be seen with you, and no leaven shall be seen with you in all your territory. You shall tell your son on that day, it is because of what the Lord did for me when I came out of Egypt. And it shall be to you as a sign on your hand and as a memorial between your eyes, and in the law of the Lord may be in your mouth. For with the strong hand the Lord has brought you out of Egypt. You shall therefore keep this statute as appointed from year to year. So we see what happens, what their preparation was for the Passover over that 10th plague. And this is, I'm going to say it, this is established as a feast. It's more than just a one-day thing, but this is established as a feast. So who ordains this? Again, it's God. It's God's word through Moses, but it's God who ordains this. And he takes it into this week-long thing with what the plan is to do this. Deuteronomy 16, 1 through 8, they basically have the same thing in the second law. It's got a little bit more instructions, but basically the same thing of how to remember that coming out of Egypt, how to remember God's Passover and all that with the Passover feast. And in Ezra 6, 19 through 22, as we talked about a little while ago, as they reestablished worship coming out of Babylon, on the 14th day of the first month, the returned exiles kept the Passover. For the priests and the Levites that purified themselves together, all of them were clean, so they slaughtered a Passover lamb. It was after the Babylonian captivity, they reestablished the Passover as soon as the temple was finished and dedicated. And in Matthew 26, pick up 17 and 19. Now on the first day of the unleavened bread, the disciples came to Jesus. Where will you have us prepare for you to eat the Passover? So Jesus and the apostles were still celebrating as Jews, and they're still working with that, and they're still doing the feast of the Passover. He tells them to go to a certain city, go to a certain man, and they set up the upper room. And as you already know, now as they were eating, Jesus took the bread, after blessing it, broke and gave it to the disciples, says, take, eat, this is my body. They took a cup, and when he had given thanks, he gave it to them, saying, drink of it, all of you, for this is my blood of the covenant, which is poured out for many of the forgiveness of sin. I tell you, I will not drink again of the fruit of the vine until the day when I drink it new with you in my Father's house. So why do we use unleavened bread when we do the communion and Lord's Supper? I think it ties back to the Last Supper with Jesus, which would have been the Passover meal, which would have been unleavened bread, unleavened bread, unleavened. No leavening anywhere. And that's why it is what it is. I'm going to leave that at Pentecost. There's a lot to Pentecost. A lot more than I expected to find. So I'll leave Pentecost with you. Yeah, I'll send that to you.